This is section 1.5. So let me go ahead and show you the homework for that. So we are on page, stay focused here. Page 131 looks like. I'm starting with problem 17. We're doing complex numbers. I is the square root of -1, as you might recall. There. And there we go. Okay. 19. 5 minus 3i plus -4 minus 7i. You just add the real part. 5 and a -4 is 1. Add the imaginary part. -3i minus 7i minus 10i. This is the real part, imaginary part. The whole thing is called a complex number. 25, before you start distribute the negative, so -12 plus 8i minus 7 minus 4i. Then just combine the number with the number. -12 and a -7 make -19. And combine the I with I. 8i minus 4i is 4i. 29, multiply, it looks like FOIL. First 28, outer 14i, inner -4i. Last is -2i squared. I squared is -1, so that's -2 times -1, which is a +2. 14i minus 4i, 10i. So final answer is -26 plus 10i. 33, you multiply a complex number with its complex conjugate. These are called conjugates. Okay, so it's a squared minus b squared. 2 times 2 is 4. 5i times -5i is -25i squared. I squared is -1. 4 plus 25, 29. Okay, so these are called conjugates. Conjugates of each other, not opposites. So you keep the sign of the real part, but you change the sign of the imaginary part. 2 plus 5i squared, that's like a plus b squared. A squared, 4, plus 2ab, 2 times 2 times 5i is 20i, plus b squared, 25i squared. I squared is -1, change that to -25. So -21 plus 20i. Okay, rationalize the denominator of I 1 over I, multiply top and bottom by I. That's I over I squared. I squared is a -1, so we just have -i left over. It's an equal sign there. Okay, 2 minus 3i divided by 1 minus 2i. Multiply top and bottom by the complex conjugate of the denominator, 1 plus 2i. So that's going to be 1 minus 4i squared. That's 1 plus 4, -4 times -1. So the denominator is 5. And then just FOIL out the top. 2 plus 4i minus 3i is plus I minus 3 I squared. So that should be minus 6i squared. Okay. So minus 6i squared is plus 6. So I'll make this 8. 8 plus I over 5, and that makes this 8/5. Okay, 2 plus I minus 6i squared, 2 plus I plus 6, -6 times -1. 2 plus 6 is 8. Sorry, that's an 8. That's a 6. This is 8 over 5 plus 1/5 I. 4 plus 6i over 3i, split it into 4 over 3i plus 2, and multiply top and bottom by I here. That gives me 4i over 3i squared. Okay, and that's going to be -1. So 2 minus 4/3 I. Put in the real part first and then the imaginary part. Powers of I. I to the 0 is 1. I to the 1 is I squared is -1. I cubed can be thought of as I squared times I. That's -I. I to the 4th, you can think of as I squared times I squared, or -1 times -1, which is 1. And then it'll just keep cycling back. So 3i to the 5th, that's 3 to the 5th, I to the 5th. 3 to the 5th is 243. I to the 5th, think of it as I to the 4th times I, and I to the 4th we now know is 1, so 243i. I to the 1000, that's I to the 4th, raised to the 250, it's a multiple of 4, and I to the 4th is 1, so 1 to the 250 is 1. 55, square root of a negative, take the negative out as an I, take that negative out as an I have I squared times radical 36, -1 times 6, or -6. Okay, square root of -5 is negative radical 5i. Square root of -1 is I. FOIL it out. First 3, outer is 3i, inner is negative radical 5i, and last is negative radical 5i squared, which is -1. So that's going to make this a plus. So 3 plus radical 5 And then these two are the I, so put them as 3 minus radical 5I after factoring out the I. 59, take out the I there, take out the I there. Radical 8 is 4 times 2, take out the 4 as 2, so 2 plus 2I radical 2 over 1 plus I radical 2, factor out a 2, and then this cancels with that, so the final answer is just 2. 61, solve by the quadratic formula. A is 1, B is 0, C is 49. So x is negative b, that's 0, plus or minus the square root of 0 squared, minus 4 times a times c over 2 times a. So I have negative 4 times 49. Take out the I, square root of 4 is 2, square root of 49 is 7. Cancel the 2, plus or minus 7i. 71, use the quadratic formula. X is negative b, negative 12, plus or minus the square root of b squared, 144, 12 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 6, times c, which is 7, over 2 times a. This comes out to be 144 minus 168. That's a negative 24. Take out the I. And let's see, 24 is 4 times 6. Take out the 4 as a 2. So negative 12 plus or minus 2I radical 6 over 12. Factor out a 2. Negative 6 plus or minus I radical 6 over 12. Cancel the 2 with 12. Negative 6 plus or minus I radical 6 all over 6. So that was section 1.5 on complex numbers.